earlier this week, Governor Bob Ferguson signed a bill that we have reported here on in Washington in Focus Daily. This is House Bill 1390. Now, this bill repeals the Community Protection Program and removes all the related statutory references. Now, the Developmental Disabilities Administration, according to this bill, has to develop and implement a plan to transmission all of these folks, CPP participants, Community Protection Program participants, into other services or program by the end of this year, with the goal of providing less restrictive options. Now, supporters say this is about sort of giving these people a fair shot. You know, they've got developmental disabilities. Yes, they may have committed these sexually violent offenses. They may have shown a propensity to potentially commit further offenses, but that shouldn't keep them in confines and in such, restrictions. They should be more mainstream with other folks. Senator Leonard Christian of Spokane Valley um, shared with us that he found the intent of the bill was really to mainstream these people, but he was worried that doing so could be at the detriment of folks in the mainstream developmental disabilities community. And he said this bill was a recipe for disaster. So as this bill moved forward during this legislative session that ended in March, um, it wasn't getting the attention it deserved. He said he had offered amendments after amendment that were rejected in committee. Nobody was listening. So when he went to the Senate floor, he intentionally used the word, and he did so knowing that, you know, some people find it offensive. He didn't do it, he said, to demean members of the developmental disabilities community. He did it because he knew it would get attention. And it did. It garnered him a reprimand from members of his own party. His Republican colleagues, especially in his own district in the Spokane area, came out and issued basically a reprimand and a condemnation that he would dare to use that word. Well, after the bill was passed this week, Governor Bob Ferguson then issued immediately a governor's directive that basically adopted some of the amendments that Senator Christian was calling for, and the whole reason why he used that language he did on the Senate floor.
He chose to sign it, but along with that signing, he put out a directive letter to Department of Social and Human Services, kind of directing them to do pretty much what was my major concerns, which was protecting these folks and getting them these individualized, IDEPs kind of thing for them, and making sure that they can be, and of course looking into the safety of moving them in with the other DD population. So the very things that we brought up as amendments in committee and on the floor, he ended up putting in a letter of directive. So for that, I really want to thank the governor for at least addressing those issues, and of course helping this community not be so victimized.
Now, when I followed up and spoke with Senator Christian on Wednesday evening this week, you know, he shared again, he wanted to make sure people know I didn't push this, I didn't use that language to hurt anyone. And he shared also that he's gotten many people that have reached out from the developmentally disabled community that have said, "Thank you. Thank you for, using this word and making the stance you did, because people have now paid attention to this issue who otherwise would not have paid attention." So while he's got condemnation for many people, he's also gotten a lot of applause from the very community that he's hoped to help. He said he really did it so that people would understand what is truly at stake.
To be in this program, you had to be deemed highly likely to reoffend. So it isn't just because you did one bad act. It is you are deemed highly likely to reoffend. And that's how you got into this program in the first place. And so to just send those folks on to, the general population, the DD population, into, you know, group homes with folks who really don't have any protection, or even the staff knowing where these, the history of these folks with a not only violent sexual past, but also a tendency to create, in going forward. So at least this, kind of directs, Department DSHS to actually go in and interview these folks and deem, if they're not, if they're still pose a danger, not move them in. Again, this is a very unique group. If these folks would not be DD themselves, they would probably be in prison. And so this was, the answer to them not being in prison, which wouldn't be fair to many of them anyway, because they really probably would not blend in with the general population of prison and not be able to be successful there. So, I mean, the program was designed out of the, concern that these folks are special as well, that they need help as well in that area. But you just can't end the one program and send them over to folks who don't have these tendencies and hope and pray everything works out. And I think the idea that we've had so many lawsuits in the state, and many of them coming from either, DHS or DCYF, that we just don't need to add more. And the reality was this was just rot for more lawsuits for the state.
So we may never know if, in fact, Governor Ferguson's directive that DSHS, make some accommodations for this bill are the result of Senator Christian's inflammatory or insensitive, whatever you want to call them, remarks on the Senate floor. We won't know if, in fact, that's why the governor issued this directive. Senator Christian is convinced that there is a correlation there. I want to share with you a couple of things that were in Governor Ferguson's directive on this legislation. One, he says it requires DSHS to provide individualized assessments for clients, including a risk assessment, prior to transitioning them out of CPP. The departments must consider safety of other residents and community when reviewing options. Clients will remain on a specialized caseload with low client to case manager ratios, and DSHS will track and review outcome data. So, all of that, according to what Senator Christian told me just yesterday, is a win. And he says, if given an opportunity to go back, despite all of the condemnation he received and the public reprimands, even from his own party, to using that word on the Senate floor, he says, "Yeah, I'd do it all again," because he believes that the governor's directive on this is an acknowledgement that the concerns he raised were valid and important, potentially to save people from real harms. So that is it for today's episode of Washington in Focus Daily for this Thursday, April the 2nd. As always, we thank you for watching. I hope you'll join us tomorrow. And also check out our stories at the Center Squares page on Washington. Again, have a great day.